Alrighty, welcome to Merchant Center Mastery YouTube channel, and in this video today we are going to set up an account with Google Merchant Center Next. So I've never done this before, so I'm just letting you know I've always worked in the original Google Merchant Center UI. This is eventually what will take place. Google is beginning to put most, maybe all, I'm not sure, new Merchant Center accounts to the new Google Merchant Center Next user interface UI, and then some old standard Merchant Center accounts have the option to transition to Next, to GMC Next. I thought it might be good for us to just walk through this together, because you might have fallen on this video because you have learned that as you've created an account, you're in Merchant Center Next, you have no idea what to do. My hope is to walk you through this, taking all the knowledge that I have with the original Merchant Center and kind of like thinking through what to do here. Maybe a couple of caveats. So one would be, I'm not going to go into all of the super uber specific details of every single setting and every single thing that we look at. That's what the other videos are for in this channel. My goal is to make these videos not turn into like hour-long things or 2-hour-long things. So we're gonna go through these and walk through steps and hit high-level things in some ways to familiarize ourselves with the interface, as well as, you know, maybe give you some tips of what to do and how we're gonna do it, right? But you know, there might be times, like a good instance would be taxes or shipping. We're just not going to go into the details of that right now. That would take a long time. There's lots of complicated things that go into that. We're just not going to do that. So just be aware of that, and also give me a little grace as I try to figure this out. I'll also, as I edit the video, try to remove any like major pausing points where I'm like, I have no idea what to do next, right? I'll try to remove that for you, just so at least it's a little seamless. But also, there might be some times where I'm trying to find something. I might leave it in there just so you can see me walk through that, because that might help you remember it in that as well, okay? So, good to go. Let's dive in. Let's learn Google Merchant Center Next. This is what to do if you start an account with Google Merchant Center Next, and how to get your e-com brand rolling with Merchant Center. Now, as we begin, so you did not see the first part of this, in which I simply typed in Google Merchant Center into google.com, the search engine, followed the prompts to set up a Google Merchant Center account. So very easy, you can find that. And then all I did was add in my store URL and maybe a name, something like that. I just literally followed like the 2 prompts there was, and that's how I got to this screen. So there you go, that's what's already happened. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and set this up. Like I said, I'm very familiar with the original Google Merchant Center UI. Still getting familiar with Next, so bear with me a little bit here. But part of what Google has been trying to do a little better, which I kind of like, is they've just been making it a little easier to follow along with what's going on in your setup process. So what we might do to begin with is just literally follow what they have done here, what they've suggested, and see where that gets us, and then we'll start to get into the nitty-gritty of adding products and things like that as well. So let's go ahead and start. We're going to add in the business address. That is my office. Those are the Zato offices, the Zato and ZatoWorks Publishing, because that's what this is. ZatoWorks Publishing. I might someday actually start selling some just swag and things like that, or books, all that stuff. So go ahead and put this in here, and to add in my work number, which is very screened just in case. We're going to go ahead and get that verified. All right, so next what we need to do is we need to verify our store URL. And so there are a number of ways you can do that, either with your e-commerce platform. You might want to use Google Tag Manager for a variety of reasons. I'm just going to throw a quick HTML tag in. I did that already just to make this easy. And so we have gone ahead and verified and claimed that that is our store. Hip hip hooray. Now we want to do some shipping things. And here's where, like I said, we're not going to get real crazy complicated. We're just going to start the process to help walk you through what we need to do. For the sake of simplicity, we're just going to have all products. Like I said, we'll do maybe a more complex one later. We might go ahead and do You could do carrier, or you could enter your specific delivery times manually based on, like to me, if you have, let's say you have various warehouses around the U.S. where one warehouse gets shipped to the Midwest and therefore it's a little quicker, you might want to adjust that. Otherwise, you can just enter that address. Like let's say we ship out of my office here and we get it right away and we have our order cut off by 2 p.m. Obviously meaning if they purchase after 2 p.m. then that's not going to ship out. We're going to go ahead and use UPS, and let's say ground is our main one since USPS loses everything. And again, just for the sake, so here's where there's a little bit of information that you can do. You can add in some different things based upon your carrier service, so that can be really interesting and helpful. Or you can just do a flat rate. You also can do free shipping for orders over. So for instance, we have a client where they have a fairly stable list of products, and they have 3 tiers. I think it's like $0 to $25 in price, or sorry, if the total order, they arrange this according to their AOV as well. It's like 0 to 25, and then it might be like 25 to 100, and then 100 and up. And then each of those get a flat rate. So that can be a different way. Obviously, there's a number of different ways to ship. Just for the sake of this, let's go ahead and say we're doing free shipping. And now we have sales tax. This starts to get pretty complex in terms of sales tax. So here's the deal: is with Google Merchant Center, everything on your site has to match the back end. So Google's not going to tell you this is where you need to add in your tax or whatever. What they do say is this does not match what your website is. So if your website is charging for sales tax in this specific state, then you need to match that within Google Merchant Center. Now here's where it gets very complicated, all right? Because we've had this happen before where we had a major issue and we discovered that it's because our client was going to the city level for taxes as well. And so the taxes was actually more than simply what you would put in for Google. And so what we did, just because obviously there's not even an option for city taxes, what we did is we made it, I think we looked up on their site to see what the maximum was that they would charge. And I think we used some Google too. And basically like, what is the highest level that could be charged by this state plus, the most expensive city, whatever it is. And then we simply added that in and said, hey, Google, so Montana, we don't have sales tax. Woohoo, yay for us. But let's just say, so Montana, if it's in sales tax, if we're selling in Montana, set a sales tax of 10% every time. Because, and here's the thing, okay, so earlier I said sales tax has to match your site. It actually has to be under. So as long as you're charging, over. So as long as you are charging, let's say you're charging $5 like sales tax, that's what it comes out to. You have to have told them in Google Shopping, because that's where this is showing. It's showing in search engine result pages. You have to show them a number, basically any number higher than 5, Google's okay with, as long as it's not lower than 5. Because remember, Google is very concerned about user experience, and what they don't want is for a user to see in this search engine result page, hey, you told us it was only going to be $3 for shipping and $2 for taxes, and now we land on your site and it's $10 for shipping and $5 for taxes. We're really angry, right? Google wants to avoid that. So at the very least, they figure, hey, if someone sees the shipping and tax and it's over, and then they land on the site, at the very least, they're just going to be happy. They're going to be like, oh, cool, it's actually less than I intended. And that's very good. That's good to know. Another thing to be aware of, and this can catch you, I said I wasn't going to go deeply into some of this stuff, but I kind of am with shipping, but it's or tax, but it's hard not to. Another thing with taxes, just to be aware of, is the taxable shipping. So some stores do charge, and I think this has to do with states as well. I believe some states require you to tax shipping, and it's been a while since I've dug into this, but it might be that some states actually require you not to charge taxes on shipping, I think. And so again, like this is where a tax company like Avalera, I think. Yeah, do you see how kind of complicated this starts to get? And this is why having an automated solution such as, like some people use Avalera, some use others, right? That's why sometimes they use it, because it just starts to get really complex. So yeah, but taxable shipping. So the idea being, hey, if you are charging tax only on your products, and then you calculate shipping after that, then you do not have this checked. If you have your product and you add shipping and then you pull tax on both of those, then you're taxing shipping. You got to make sure that this is checked so it'll match, otherwise it won't, and then Google will be upset. So let's go ahead, and then obviously then you have all of these states, and you can make your adjustments and all that, blah blah blah, like 45% or whatever it might be, and then you can go on from there. So let's go ahead and we will go back. We're going to just say no taxes for right now. No taxes. And now, so those were kind of the basics, and there are some other things too that we'll look into, but those are at least the initial things that Google says, hey, this is how you get your products on. And then we will add our products. So let's go ahead and click that. Now, what you can do here, and again, this is Google Merchant Center Next, so this is different. So Merchant Center Next, so you have some different options for actually syncing your product data into merchant centers. Because remember, your website, you're selling things, all of your product data is there. You need to get that data in the correct format to Merchant Center, so then Merchant Center can connect with Google Ads, and then you can put this into Google Shopping and start advertising, or the free Google product listings. So how you do that is you need to send a product feed to Google Merchant Center, and there are different ways to do that. You can upload a specific file, and there are different third-party services such as Data Feed Watch. I like them. I won't click on the ad, so I don't waste the money. But Data Feed Watch is a good third-party service. They're priced relatively well. Feedonomics is another one that we have used quite a bit in the past. The only thing I'll note with them is they're definitely on the higher end of price, and it depends on what you need. If you don't need them to do a lot, you don't have a lot of complexity to your products, then it might not be worth it. You might want to look into something like Data Feed Watch, because you can still do editing. You can do bulk editing of the product data, because that's part of the thing is when your product data comes from your site, then it's typically not. Not only is it not optimized for Google Merch Center, it's not even always in the right what's the word? It's not even like, I was going to say framework, but it's not correct, all right, for Google Merchant Center. And so what you need to do is determine is actually make sure that your data is in the correct format. There's the word I was looking for, format. It's got to be in the correct format, right? So that's where some of these product solutions, these feed solutions come in, is they say, okay, this is what you're asking for with product type. Here's, like, we'll take that and now we'll spit out the correct format for Google Merchant Center. And that would be oftentimes where you upload a file. You can use a Google Sheets template. This is my recommendation if you are a very simple, small shop. If you're a simple, small shop, there's actually one more recommendation, especially if you're using Shopify, which is really the easy button, which most people should do, but we'll get to that in a second. Let's say that I'm selling a couple of products on my website, like maybe I'm selling my book and then like a mug that I've made, like a PVC mug. I was thinking, I had one somewhere. Okay, see? So here's one mug I made. See, there's the ZetaWorks publishing logo, but PPCers unite separately in your own homes. I like that. But this is my favorite. It even, like, you can stain it inside and you don't even know. So that's cool with the black. But this is a Zeta mug, but it's introverted but willing to discuss PPC. So can you tell there's a common theme? Anyways, let's say I want to start selling those. I could just literally create a Google Sheets document, and you can use the template for that, and it's really handy. I'll go ahead and sign in here. Yes. And then it's going to make an actual Google Sheets file that you can do. So here is the Google Merch Center. This is the actual feed. It's a template, which is really awesome, and it tells you, it even gives you like helpful information and examples of all this stuff, which is really fantastic and cool. So that is an option. Like if I had like 3 products, I would use a Google Sheet. Just throw it up there. You're not changing much. You know, Google Sheets is great. I just add products one by one. I don't know. I guess you could do that, you know, and then edit it within Merchant Center. That might be an option in the future. I guess I'm a little old school in terms of like, I actually like having a document that I can see and adjust and change, and that I know it's just one place that I know I can go and edit everything and edit it all in bulk and all that sort of stuff. So, and then adding products using the API means you are actually interfacing directly to, like, let's say Shopify or BigCommerce, right? So within Shopify, so every time that product, if something gets changed in the product, that sends like this trigger using an app within Shopify. We'll talk about that using an app, but it sends this trigger to Google, to the app, and then app sends this to Google Merchant Center saying, hey, this price changed on this product, like instantaneously. Whereas these other options, like the add products from a file, that is typically every 24 hours. And you can change that. You do not want it. I mean, I do not think it's good to have it weekly, especially not monthly, because it expires in about a month anyways. In the old days, I haven't heard the latest of this, but just be aware of this. In the old days, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's still like this. In the old days, Google would actually give a little bit of like ranking benefit to feeds that were uploaded more often because it was fresher content, it was fresher information. I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me, actually. And so I just think that there's benefit in sending your products, you know, more often, and that's one of the reasons why I like the API. And again, on that whole like Google ranking benefit thing, I don't remember if that was a specific in a document or if that was just told me by a Googler at one point. That was like one of the like years ago in the brain of Kirk sort of a thing. But it also makes sense that Google would appreciate fresh information, fresh content. That's kind of how Google rolls. So kind of like, you know, sometimes with that sort of thing, common sense is the way to go. So anyways, API, that's one of the reasons I really like it, is because it just keeps things updated. And then within Shopify, and this is what I really like, I'm a big fan of the Simprosys app, the Simprosys shopping app. And the reason being, it's so doggone cheap. So if you have under, I don't know, it's like 200 products or something like that, it's $5 a month. So where, you know, Feedonomics at their like base level, they're like $300 a month, I think. They might have a cheaper option than that now, but so $5 a month, right? You're doing all of the management yourself, but here we go. 500 products. I think they might have changed that. You're doing all the management yourself in Simprosys, but because everything is tied directly into Shopify, it's really like you import everything into Shopify. And maybe we should do a video on Simprosys, because I'm such a big fan of it. I'd like to do a video. They have a lot of their own help videos, by the way, but you import stuff into your app, Simprosys or another app, and so all those products go into it, but then the apps allow you to do different editing of your products, and that's why I really like Simprosys, because you can edit a bunch of stuff in their product type and title and all that sort of thing directly within the app, and then it gets sent in the Content API to Google. So let's go ahead, for the sake of this, let's go ahead and just use our Google Sheets template. Just for the sake of this, let's try this. Test product, test description. I don't have a shopping cart. I don't have anything. So, okay, let's go ahead, just for the sake of that. It's again, like, it's going to get disapproved here, but then I believe we can go through now and give it a try. So Google, I'm gonna have to start changing the way that I talk about this, because like Google's transitioning to this data sources terminology rather than your data feed, which is kind of interesting to me, actually. But that's in your data sources section over there. Used to be over here in the product feed section, if you remember that. And then once there are products in here, you'd actually be able to see them here, and then you'd be able to start managing them. Same with the shipping and that sort of thing. Okay, now there are going to be a few other businessy type things just to look into to make sure you do in order to set this up. But overall, you're starting to get close to having things set up here. Now, one thing that I need to do is I need to go ahead and connect this and sync this to Google Ads. So we'll look through some of that other stuff after that. But okay, so I'm going to go ahead and actually add in another one of my main email addresses just so that we can access this. I am going to go ahead and make them an admin. Okay, another thing that's very difficult to find, in my opinion, is you actually have to link your Google Ads account with your Google Merchant Center Next account as well. This is confusing because it's not really like other Google properties where they say things like linked accounts, right? So it's actually in Manage in Business Manager, and that's then where you would actually access some of your other things. So you can add in third-party apps, or you can add in like Google Ads. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to go ahead and link our Zato Ads account, and we'll go ahead and they're telling you what's being shared, send the link request, and then within Google Ads, I have that open another tab here. I'm going to go ahead and go into the linked accounts section of Google Ads, and I can see, hey, there is a link there, and I'm going to say manage in link. Now, I bet if I refresh this page, it'll say connected. Cool, there we go. Okay, so now we have that connected, and you can add in, other things as well. Kind of up to you what you want to add in there. But I imagine, like, my guess is there's going to be more and more things that are brought into this, especially apps, over time as Google starts putting more engineering into Google Merchant Center Next. I wouldn't be surprised, knowing how Google works. So right now they likely have engineering teams dedicated to both Merchant Center and Merchant Center Next. And part of the way Google works is over time, eventually, like, they just basically shift their engineering focus into what they want to do, like Merchant Center Next. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens eventually. Like that's what happened, at one point with like Smart Shopping campaigns and Performance Max, where all of a sudden eventually it was like, look, we're investing in Performance Max. Eventually they killed Smart Shopping campaigns. So be expecting things to happen there. So that was in the People and Access, and then Manage in Business Manager. And you do need to make sure you do that in order to actually send your ads to Google Ads, as you have to link that together. Okay, add-ons. So I believe this is similar to the programs that were in Merchant Center, the programs. Maybe there might be some differences, but so here would be things like promotions, so that you can activate your promotions, and then also like custom reports. Let's go ahead and throw that in, just because, like, hey, who doesn't like custom reports? And then you can actually, get into that. Maybe that's something we'll do eventually as well, as create some of those custom reports. Hey, look at that. Our product has shown up, and believe it or not, it has a lot of issues. So that's where you'd be able to see that. That used to be the diagnostics tab. Now it's this, and it can tell you what it's missing. And obviously we'll have to go in and, eventually we'd fix that if we wanted to. Comparison shopping services. For those who are in the EU, remember comparison shopping, that was CSS was made because Google got sued by the EU, and so this is their way of making a more fair auction. So if you're not in the EU, United Kingdom, or Switzerland, don't even worry about this, because your CSS is Google Shopping. If you're in one of those, if you're in Europe, one of those areas, then definitely dig into what a CSS is, and like there are different comparison shopping services that you can look into, and there's a lot to be said about that. Mike Ryan is someone that I've talked to a bit. A guy named Andrew Lulk, he's a guy who's done quite a bit with CSS and that sort of thing. So they'd maybe be able to answer questions if you have those specifically online. So let's look through some of just these basic, just the overall general account options. So at this point in this account, let's say those products were actually approved. Like, your account's pretty much live at this point. Like, you can advertise, within shopping ads. It's going to take, it could take a day or two for everything to get processed into Google Ads the first time. It could take a couple of days just to see your once you do that, process them into Google Ads, and then start create a campaign, let's say you create a PMAX or a shopping campaign, then it could take, a couple days just for your ads to show, just because like everything is processing through, especially that first time. But for the most part, everything is good to go. Everything is rolling. So let's look at what's on in Merchant Center Next general account options. So they do have product protection, which they added in the Merchant Center. And that's basically what that does is if for some reason you know that you're never going to have, let's say 40% of your offers that are deleted other than like an accident, okay? So, what you might want to do for sure, like I would for sure turn this on, and maybe you could do something like 90% or that sort of thing if that's for sure. Because if you have products, if you have a store where you have a whole lot of products that for whatever reason are coming in or going out, you might not want to set this, because what it does is it actually prevents these products from getting deleted within Merchant Center if a bunch of them are removed from your feed at once. So it's kind of nice, just in case someone accidentally deletes a feed, whatever, they delete the app within Shopify, all of your products go down. Google Merchant Center now has kind of a fail-safe to prevent that from happening. But if you actually want a bunch of your products to be deleted out, then Google will prevent that from happening. So just make sure, like if you're going in and removing half of your products, do make sure that you look into this product protection option just to make sure it's not set at like 40%, because then then it wouldn't work for you. You wouldn't actually delete anything. So 90% just kind of makes sure that that's like an overall fail safe, that if anything like goes down in the entire account, if your feed tries goes down at all, then you're safe. Your language and time zone, and then okay, advanced account setup. There's a CSS. We talked about that. Advanced account setup. This is for, like probably the vast majority of people are never going to have to do this. And so this would be, I think this would be what they used to call multi-client accounts with MCAs with Google Merchant Center. So this might be if you are an agency, providing service. I actually don't even like using that, really, frankly, because at least in the old days, the MCA had some complexities to it, with even being difficult to remove, clients from it without a Google rep and that sort of thing. I just like getting access directly with an email access to our clients. But that might be one place where you might want this is if you do have kind of a mother company and you have like 5 companies under that are all very related, and you want kind of one source over all of that, you could create an advanced account setup for that. So that might be an option. But now you know that that's there, and they do say the conversion is permanent. So okay, so that's basically the conversion settings. I forgot about that. Conversion settings, I would say do turn on auto tagging, because then you don't have to tag for free product listings anymore. So at one point I had written on that, you don't have to do that anymore. So you can do that. And then again, like we're starting to get into newer stuff as well. And so, you might want to create conversion source so you can get some of that information into Merchant Center as well, similar to what you have with Google Ads. I'm all about, more information, so that's great. So check into that. Now, we already looked at shipping. Let's quick look at return. Do add your return policy here. So that's where you'd want your URL, and then you can give specific information, and you can walk through exactly which one works for you, because you do have to have the right answers. But then that's going to get and then fees as well, because it's a 3-step process here. But that'll get the information to Google, and then they'll actually be able to show that in SERPs and that sort of thing. So shipping and returns, and then do they show the return stuff in SERPs? Now I'm doubting myself. I know that it impacts some things. Now we get into some of the business info things. So you already have your business info there that we've already added. Although here's what I'll say is, it looks like it's added. Go ahead and click into it, because then you can add in some additional things like customer service, live chat support. They've added some things. This is almost like a Google My Business. You can add in some business identity attributes. You can add your social profiles. That's all new. And then adult content, whether or not you are selling adult content. Not that doesn't mean like adult size shoes, all right? I mean, you know, like lingerie, erotic lingerie, or something like that. And so let's see, and then we have the logos and colors. So get your square and rectangular logo. You do really need to make sure you follow this, otherwise Google will disapprove you and it can kind of get annoying. So just follow these requirements and then you should be good. And then you can add in the color, and I do like to do that. So like with Zato in this one, we might do white and then this like teal blue thing. And so we'd add that in there. I'd have to grab the hex code and that sort of thing, but we'd get white as the main and then that teal blue as the accent color. And what that does is, especially with like PMAX, and as Google does more and more with auto-generated things, they're taking what you've given them, and then they'll make ads that like match your brand color and work in some of your product images and things like that. So that, you know, it kind of depends. Sometimes they're hit or miss on their auto-generated, but sometimes they can look really good. And then we have checkout settings. So you might want to consider having a link directly to your cart or checkout page. I have conflicted feelings on this, and so I'll let you maybe test it, but here are my thoughts. Is that if someone's searching and they're in a search engine result page and they see your shopping ad and they can click and go directly to your cart, it just seems to me that that's not a bad thing typically. Maybe if you have like very clear evidence that when people purchase from you, they have a ton of add-ons and they really increase AOV, maybe you want to avoid that. But you may want to consider, especially for businesses where people just buy the thing that they looked at, you may want to consider testing that checkout option so that they go right to checkout when they click on that, because that, you know, you could just see, like, does that increase your conversion rate or not on those? But that's what that checkout is for. Here are the free product listings that Google utilizes your products and shows them in free spots on Google. You're almost always for sure going to want those because it's just free clicks and free money. With old Merchant Center, it was in the feed. With Merchant Center Next, it's here directly, and you can just throw that stop button if you don't want to show them. The ad campaigns, here's where it gets a little interesting. Google's starting to morph Merchant Center Next and ads together here. I am actually not 100% sure if I would go through this, whether or not it would allow me to create a PMAX campaign directly here. So maybe that's something that I'll have a better insight for you down the road, since this is so new. I'm a little scared to mess with this too much because I don't want to impact my current Google Ads campaigns and account. So again, kind of that interesting, Google's trying to take a bunch of channels and morph them together. And then those promotions that we made, I'm definitely going to get a video out on promotions, and then eventually we'll need to do one just to see, hey, are there differences between promotions and Next as well as in the old Merchant Center? So definitely be watching for those. And then of course we have the performance, where you can get performance and reports, where you can just basically get insights on everything that's happened within Google. One other thing I want to draw your attention to, which I think is so cool, is Product Studio. So Product Studio is, I'm going to go ahead and just like blow through these. Product Studio allows you to create basically like AI created product images. So, you know, I could upload an image that I wanted, and then I could say, hey, you know what? I want to take this image of this mug and I'd like to put it on a life raft in the middle of the ocean. Bam, you could do that here. Or I want it on a snowy mountain scene, and you could do that. Snowy mountain background. I just want it on a white background, right? So tons of you know, really interesting information or things that can be made that I'm interested to start playing around with more. But now you have a little bit of insight into that's coming. I think it's awesome, and you should know about it. So. Okay, I think those are the big things. That was a lot, I realize, but hopefully you have a better idea of what Google Merchant Center Next is like. how to set it up, how to set up an account with Merchant Center. Be aware that there are no feed rules and no supplemental feeds if you're familiar with what those are yet in Merchant Center Next. I have been told by Jenny Marvin, ads liaison of Google, I've been told by her directly on Twitter that those are coming. They are on the roadmap. So like supplemental feeds are coming. So we will be able to make edits within Merchant Center Next, which is a good thing. It's not there yet, so just be aware of that. So thanks so much. I guess we'll ride this Merchant Center Next train together as we learn more, as they change. Things are going to change in here. So we'll just do the best we can in the meantime and keep learning and keep selling. Thanks so much.